Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jeremy Sanchez-Roux, and I am currently the Associate Dean of the Journalism School. I work along with our Acting Dean, Elena Konis, who is running the school as our Dean. Our previous Dean, Gita Anand, had to step down very suddenly a couple months ago for medical reasons. I'm working with Elena. Unfortunately, Elena can't be here today. She had to be out of town today, but she sends her regards and is really excited to have you all join us and learn about our program. And I think you guys are around multiple days, right? Or people, yeah. So if you're around tomorrow, I think she's back tomorrow, and she'd love an opportunity to just say hi if you get a chance. In addition to that, I also help to run our multimedia track, and so I'll be telling you a little bit about that. As you've already learned, we have 5 tracks at the school that are based on a medium of journalism. And so documentary, narrative writing, audio, photojournalism, and multimedia. And multimedia is sort of the most amorphous track because it's a track that sort of is composed of all the others, right? And so we build, a lot of times what we do in multimedia is we create websites and we focus on a multitude of skills. We teach a little bit of audio, we teach some video, we teach certainly text is a foundational medium that everyone learns. Everyone will take an introduction to reporting class called J200 where you learn to write and report. And that is sort of a foundation of all the other media forms. We also covered a lot of data and coding. And so the multimedia program really is, it's also the most forward-thinking track. We try to separate this out as a space that allows students to experiment, to innovate, to think about, to really push the envelope when it comes to just what is a news story. And we often encourage students to be experimental and to be innovative. So video animation, we have an animating the news class that teaches about animation explainer videos. These are very popular type of videos that were popularized by a news entity called Vox, but now is everywhere. And they're especially popular on social media as ways to explain complicated and difficult topics to a lay audience. And so that is a class that we now offer on a regular basis in animating the news class. And it teaches some software called After Effects that teaches you motion graphics. But more importantly, how to architect a story using only graphics. And also animation, because sometimes we deal with subject matter that can't be filmed or shown. And so we want to preserve the essence of that story. So we tell that story through animation. Character profiles, data graphics. We have, I'm also joined by Jennifer LaFleur, our newest data professor who just joined us last year. And we offer a number of data classes, including a data visualization class, reporting on inequality with data, intro to data journalism. And there's also a research methods class that's required of everyone. So everyone in that first semester takes research methods where you'll learn things like spreadsheets, pivot tables. You'll learn about public records requests, how to file. Every student in the journalism school will learn how to file what's called a FOIA, or a Freedom of Information Act request to the federal government. So you don't leave school here without having to request records from the federal government or from a government agency so that you know how to do that and you feel confident in doing that. And then if you want to expand further into that, there's a number of classes. We also teach some entry-level computer programming classes around Python and JavaScript and R. And R is a statistical language. And so there's some opportunities to really go a little bit deeper into some of the more technical facets of data journalism. And we also do a lot of experimentation with emerging tech. I'll be very honest, we're not as structured as some of our peer institutions with things like VR, AR, or 360 video. I know some of our other competitor journalism schools have established a very robust VR program. We're a little bit more cautious about jumping into that field until it's become more established. VR is a nascent technology that people use for video games and sometimes some immersive experiences. I do see that it is an area, a frontier that could be very vibrant, but as it starts to still take shape, it's very expensive. It has a tremendous logistical barrier. These devices are very bulky, but it will one day, I think, become more established, and we're ready to jump in there. We've had several students already embark on some of these projects, but it's very, very bespoke. It's very ad hoc, and so sometimes a student will come to us and say, hey, I really want to do this very cool 360 video project, and we have a few 360 camera gear, equipment, and we've also started to establish some general rules about filmmaking, which is a very different way of thinking about filmmaking when you're using 360, because you can't be near the camera. You have to basically turn it on and run out of the room and let it capture the atmosphere and let the scene unfold. And so it's a very different way of thinking, but there's already rules about how to do things like 360 video, or even VR, which is computer-generated, often video. We also just do a lot of other digital publishing opportunities. Some of our students have created websites or products. A few apps. Some students usually partner with, a programmer to create an app. We had one student, she created for her master's project an app that teaches primary school children about news, and so they can pretend like they're reporters and report on their community, and then submit the stories, and so that was, and she got a grant for that. And we also had another student who built an app around creating a place for the literary community. There's an indie literary community, and he wanted to create a way that people can share. So it was a website/app, so it was a way that people can share content. So some of the classes is Intro to Multimedia. That's the very first class that is specific for multimedia track students. Learn the fundamentals of visual design, multimedia storytelling, design thinking. In the second semester, there's a class called Interactive Narratives, where you report and produce multimedia packages. We have data journalism, learn, acquire, clean, sort, analyze, and summarize data visualization, and as I was saying, computer coding, Python, JavaScript for both web development and data analysis. And the coding classes that we teach really have two areas. One is more on the reporting side, using a programming language called Python, which allows you to basically develop code to run like data analysis, to take a very large data sets, spreadsheets, which would not load in a spreadsheet, and to interrogate it, to ask it questions by just running certain commands, and also to visualize it, to understand it, and to summarize it simply. The other side of computer coding is JavaScript, where we often teach it as a way of communication. So it's a more of expression, using some libraries out there that allow you to visualize stories with interactive graphics. And so one of the popular ways to engage a public is to make things, to personalize media, so that you type in your zip code and you see something that is relevant to you specifically, rather than just a generic story. And so in order to personalize it, you have to create a little bit of code. I would say overwhelmingly the number, all of our students, with maybe one or two exceptions, come in with zero coding skills. And we always have a handful that really just fall in love with it and really take off with it and become graphics or data or coders out in the journalism industry. So it is something that is achievable if you have no coding experience whatsoever. We can get you onto that. We can onto that track, and if that is something that you're interested in. Same thing with data journalism, and which is very closely aligned to investigative journalism as well. Any questions before we jump in real quick? I just want to real quick, I have a short promo video I can show briefly that just kind of summarizes shows very brief clips of some of our projects. Let me show the video first, and then maybe we'll just open it up. And I also have some examples of some of the master's projects that some of our students have created. So let me play this, and I hope the audio comes through for our Zoom audience. And so, okay, so let's see. Let's try. Rick, can we? I'm sending the audio through the HDMI, so maybe it just needs to be turned on. If not, I can play it through my.
Одоо энэ жил ноёдлон урьдчил 2 жилийн өмнө бол гайваас энэ жил бол арай дэндүү шүү дээ.
This was a drone video. We also teach a drone class. Kind of like drones. That's what This is Egypt. Animation class. This is Afghanistan.
I don't want to give up my child's life, so I'm only doing what's best.
I thought if I told them, they would see me differently. They would disown me.
It's too late to say sorry when you took someone's life.
Somebody shot at us. They're trying to scare us.
And it's quick money. It's better than selling drugs.
Cop jumps out and starts harassing your friends, and pull out their camera and start recording. I bet you'll do your job right.
It's not easy, but no choice. I'm single mother. I need to fight.
So this is all on, we have a website called multimedia.report. And you can actually see a lot of these projects here under the student work. And you can see as you scroll down, we put a lot of the master's projects that you can click into. And then you can kind of see, so like here was a project a student did in Colorado about abandoned mines and the way that they pollute, the environment and some of the waterways just basically turn completely yellow with leftover. You can see just the water and the way it's just completely contaminated with copper, leftover copper and other dangerous metals. And so in a lot of these different, projects, as I'm scrolling down, it's basically showing the way that this contamination goes into certain communities. And if I scroll backwards, it goes backwards. And so we do a lot of these different kind of dynamic websites and other types of projects just around a variety of topic areas. We do a lot of animation. This one was a project about children who are caught, unaccompanied minors who come over the border and are caught by immigration, and because they are unaccompanied, they don't get a lawyer, so they have to defend themselves in court. So some of them are very young, as young as like 4 years old. And so we can't take cameras into the courtroom, so how do we tell the stories? We tell it with animation. So using the animation class, we can kind of paint a picture for viewers to understand what this is like.
Cameras aren't allowed inside the San Francisco Immigration Court, but if they were, you'd see something like this. The courtroom looks like a pediatrician's office. Children as young as 4 years old line the benches of the courtroom. One by one, they stand alone before the judge, without an attorney to help them understand the legal system they're navigating.
And we actually got the judge to talk to us. And so here's the judge. She's there describing this for us, and she says it's heartbreaking. And we, asked, can we film inside this courtroom? She absolutely not. She wouldn't allow it. But she basically allowed an interview for us. And the premise of the story is that when you have an attorney, your chances of avoiding deportation are extremely high. There's a lot of ways a lawyer can work with you in asking for asylum or any number of things. But you're not, unlike a criminal case where you're given a lawyer automatically. With immigration, because it's a civil case, you're not given one. So basically, anybody who doesn't have a lawyer just is pretty much automatically deported. And so that's a really interesting story that a student had done. A lot of these other stories. This one was interesting project about how these farmland fields, spray pesticides, and there's these laws that prevent them from spraying pesticides near schools. And you can see that, so they're allowed to spray here, but within a 4th mile of the school. But it doesn't include homes. And so there's a lot of people who live right near these fields, and this spray gets over and they get these rashes and they get all kinds of health ailments. And this one woman, they're not allowed to spray at certain times, and she hears her cell phone video saying they come at night, and they do it at night when no one's around and can see. And she goes, look, there you are, you can see the spray, and these are very dangerous chemicals. And so this was a really powerful story. And then this one was, this was a series of stories in the Central Valley. This one was about a woman who was pregnant, who was a meth user. And so this student wanted to tell this story for almost first person through her journey. So she goes to this needle exchange, and she's there. She's talking about it. According to drug treatment rates, drug use in Fresno is twice the average of the nation. And she goes, and then that's when I'm about to go home, and that's when I meet Amanda. And she's pregnant. And basically the student followed her throughout her pregnancy and just talked about how vicious this, the addiction is. And so she's basically completely addicted to meth, and she can't get off. Here's the text message exchange. So we're trying to tell stories in a very dynamic, very multimedia way, not just here's a bunch of text, or sit down and watch like a 2-hour documentary. Those media forms still persist. Documentaries are doing extremely great on streaming services, on televisions, but on computers, people don't tend to be scrolling through your Instagram feed and you see a 30-minute video and you click play and you watch for 30. It has to be very quick, very short. There's a different set of expectations, a different design to the story, different shape to the story when you're delivering on digital platforms. So whether it's on social media, or if it's on a website, or if it's on some other device, we think about the shape of a story differently. In the same way, our audio program designs the audio experience for the car, because that's where most people listen to, or even just on headphones when they're doing something else. So all of the rules of doing radio or audio are really designed around this distracted listening experience in terms of the cadence, in terms of the word choice, the sentence structure, everything about the shape. In fact, if you pick up the audio reporting guide, NPR's audio reporting guide, one of the rules is do not read a newspaper story over the air because it's written differently. Newspaper stories do not work over the air because they're meant to be read, whereas when you're writing for radio, you're writing for the ear. So we've taken journalism and we shape and we mold it to fit the medium in which we're telling it, audio. So we're writing for the ear, we're going to change the journalism structure to optimize it for the ear. Or you're going to optimize it for a print experience, or you're going to optimize it for a television. But what ends up happening a lot with the web is people just take those other media forms and just dump it on the web. So CNN takes the same broadcast news that they've always done on television, and they just put it up on their YouTube channel. And the New York Times takes this long-form magazine story that's 3,000 words, and they just put it up on their website. And so we're saying that hey, in the same way that we've kind of develop these media forms for each of these different, venues in which people watch them or consume them. What are the rules of the web, of digital devices? What's the attention span? What stimulates people? What are some of the characteristics that we can leverage, such as interactivity, such as scrolling, such as different visual elements? And so we're trying to tell some really, really dynamic stories. And we encourage our students to really think. This is, I have a couple other promo videos from just different showcase projects that we've done. I might skip through these, but these basically go through some of these different stories that
gaining the trust
this one was about
of my sources was a big one.
And so this one student basically
online and Facebook groups, Telegram, Parler, a lot of different.
And so let's see here. This is okay. This was a project that a student did. She did a little video, and this was all shot on this project with cell phone video, just cell phone and drone video. But basically, she wanted to tell the story of lithium, the explosion of lithium as the technology in batteries, because they're replacing oil, in cars. They're replacing, it's the thing that's powering everything, our satellites, everything in life is now being powered by lithium. And so where does lithium come from? Where does it end up when it's gone? So it turns out most of the world's lithium comes from Bolivia. And so she went to Bolivia. You know, we looked at the manufacturing and what it does to the earth and how it's going to really reshape, you know, sort of the ecology in a lot of these salt flats where a lot of the lithium is mined. And then she also went to China, where a lot of the e-waste seems to be ending up because there's such a vibrant recycling industry, and it's not really recycled well, and so it ends up in a lot of waterways. And so she did a little promo video, and I'll play that real quick.
I'm in love with lithium because I think it's the last opportunity for Bolivia to go out of the poverty.
The competition is very, very stiff because battery or energy storage is so important.
This was all shot with the
现在回收率的话呢，应该是在不到1%。所以说，大量的电池通过垃圾进了填埋场，污染了水源、土壤，通过食物链进入生态链的话呢，那对整个生态环境是造成就是说应该说甚至不可逆的影响。
Project won a lot of awards, and it was, and it's a it's a little bit, where is it? There it is, and you can see there's different chapters, and a big part of it is text, you know. So it's a magazine style piece with a lot of multimedia interstitials, data visualization, graphics, videos. So when we say multimedia, we truly mean multiple media, right? And so multiple media forms. A lot of times students work together in teams. They don't have to gain a mastery of every media form, but we do encourage, we like to say, the T model, which is like learn a little bit of everything, be proficient in everything, but be specialize in that one thing, be really good at that one thing. So this particular student was mostly a writer. She had come from narrative writing background, and she said, oh, I want to be in the multimedia track, and I want to learn all these things. Takes the video class, takes the animation class, you know, learns the data visualization class, works with another student, and again, she shot all of the video on her cell phone, and it turned out to be a really nice project, and it really kind of captured sort of some of the challenges with lithium. And this was done in about 2015, 2016, so now, you know, here we are 10 years later, and you know, still really grappling with just the explosive growth of lithium and technology and other battery technologies. So let me see. How am I doing? Okay, good time. Yeah. Okay, cool. And so, and this project, you know, was nominated for an Emmy. This project was a class project where the whole class got together, wanted to do a joint project together, the multimedia class, which was really cool. And that got published in the Atlantic. I showed a few of these. This was a student who, Google had briefly released this device called Google Glass, but basically it was a pair of glasses that had a camera embedded in it. So she went to India and she told this story about women who get harassed on like the train and other commuting areas. And she ended up creating an interactive game. And so I won't play the whole thing, but it was basically...
This is always being talked about. Women, safety, gender, patriarchy. What does it mean to be a woman? What is the change that we are looking for?
And so you basically, she ended up creating a game where you follow a character. It's like video driven, but then these options come up on the screen saying, would you want to do this or would you want to do this? So that way you feel a little bit more invested because you're participating in some of the difficult choices a lot of these women have to make when they're just trying to get to work and just trying to commute from one place to another. This one was also an interactive project. This one started off as a documentary. So she filmed it as a documentary, but then wanted to adapt it to the web because, you know, she didn't want to just put an hour-long video on a website. And so you scroll through it and you get different scenes. It's about this island in the South Pacific. And I should also mention we funded all of these projects. And so, as you're scrolling through the project, you're reading these little, we call it chunkifying the text, in small chunks, because you don't want to drown somebody in just a and basically it's this island community that has to be relocated because of climate change. So this indigenous community that's lived on this island for thousands of years, through no fault of their own, they have to be relocated. So she gets there. It was really hard to get there. Take this plane with these missionaries. This was about in Mongolia. This was a story about the growing cases of HIV in China. And China, and different parts of China are kind of going through what San Francisco went through in the 80s, which is that there's an explosion of HIV cases, which seems to mostly be related to a lack of education, because the best way to combat this is through education, and because it's still a very taboo subject, particularly in the gay community. And so there's a lot of, especially young people who are discovering their sexuality, having unprotected sex, and contracting HIV. And so they wanted to tell one of these stories, but of course we want to protect their privacy. We don't want to put them on camera. So we did animation, and the student's like, I can't draw. And yeah, you're fine. You just try to draw it. And so
when I was in middle school, a classmate told me he was in love with me. I said, "You're a dude. How is it possible that you love me?" He said he was gay, and I was like, what does gay mean? I did some research online and went to a bunch of gay chat rooms. A friend I met there introduced me to a gay man. He offered to have sex with me. I thought, what does it feel like? So I tried it and it felt right. But we didn't use any protection. One day I was on this long bus ride. When the bus started moving, I threw up. There was a small restroom on the bus, and I stayed there.
And so he talks about, how he contracted. He finally learned he has HIV positive. He's a teenager, and he's just worried, and he's grappling because he doesn't want to tell his parents, and he needs to get help, and sort of just all of the mixture of emotions and different things. So yeah, that's our multimedia program in a nutshell. Certainly, if you want to know more, please check out the multimedia.report, a little companion website. And it has some information just about our program. Here are the folks that are running it. Me, John Harden, who's a data reporter for the Washington Post, teaches our second class. Ashwin Sheshagari is a graphics editor for the New York Times. He's also teaching the master's project class. Julian Glover is the race and culture reporter for ABC News. And he's teaching our introduction to multimedia reporting. And Diana DeRoy is a documentary video editor, and she's also assisting with some of the video. And then we have different instructors that have taught at different times, and so and you can kind of go through and see their profiles and some of their work. And we also have some tutorials, some of the classes that we offer, and we put tutorials here for our students, and we just leave it open for the public. So like here's social media verification, and we do a whole lot of stuff with OSINT about looking at the metadata. So I mean, I can go endlessly through a lot of this stuff. So. Any questions, and especially for Zoom? If you do, please, Nelly, if you wouldn't mind.
Hey, thank you for this. This is awesome. I have two questions. One of them is pretty small.
Yeah.
First one is just for the documentaries and these trips that these students went on.
Yeah.
It seems like they shoot everything themselves.
Yeah.
Edit everything themselves.
Yes.
But then also there's a team aspect to this.
Yes, you could see if I go to student work and you look at, so lately there was mostly solo projects, but like these two students work together, these two students work together on this project. Excuse me. So you can see there's been lots of pairings. Some people work solo. We used to have a lot more team projects. There we go. So 3, 2, this student right here worked on 2 of these projects, helped her out. She was the lead on this one. And so yeah, teams or solo. Yeah.
Great. And then second question is kind of just if you can speak a little bit about experience coming into this program and then coming out of it as well. Do students typically have some experience? Like I know you said some don't have experience in coding, and then when they do graduate from this, what kind of fields are they usually end up in? If you can just speak a little bit on that.
Yeah. So in terms of the experience, we try to teach every intro class with zero knowledge, like coming into an intro to data class or intro to coding class. We assume nothing, that you're learning it from the very first time, so that way it's very accessible to everybody. A lot of students do come in with some preference, like I'm a photographer and I'm going to get more into video, or I've already done a little bit of audio as an undergrad. And so people do come in with sort of a foundation in something, and I would say it's not through any design of our program, but it is, it's just the way that it tends to organically kind of work out, where people gravitate to the things that they know best, and they kind of specialize in something that they've already had a little bit of a foundation in. And so our writers tend to go into like investigative or do sometimes narrative writing, and so they kind of build that out a little bit more. Every now and then somebody will make a complete shift, like I've never touched a camera, and they end up like doing photojournalism as a track, and that's happened before, but it tends to be rare, if I'm being honest. And your other question was, coming out, where do they put students? Is there a wide range, and you can kind of see some of the. I haven't updated this, so people are some of the profiles, but these are the multimedia students. So some of them work for the New York Times, some of them have worked for. He's a Fulbright scholar, San Jose Spotlight, local. Politico has hired a lot of our students. Utah is working at the Washington Post. Alex is at Politico. Associated Press, Reuters. Actually, we've got to update this. Drew started his own thing recently. Susie Nelson's at the San Francisco Chronicle, and she's running their data team now there. Bloomberg's hired a lot of our students recently. Some of our students, are freelancers because they just will love to work independently. A lot of the students who have graduated a while ago who are freelance tend to do it by choice, because it's, you work for yourself, and it can be a very rewarding experience. It can also be a struggle because you have to be on top of it and be very disciplined with your time. It's a feast or famine kind of lifestyle. You sell a big piece for a lot of money, and then you have to sustain that to the next piece. And so, so it's all over the map, right? And I'm not, everyone asks us this question, like, oh, are most of your students going into journalism still? Or some of them work in journalism adjacent, in startups, nonprofits, Center for Biological Diversity, media specialists. Let's see. So I don't know if you guys can see all this. I'll make it a little bit larger. Fan phase at the Financial Times. Lena's. These might be a little outdated. Moon Palace. So she's doing like an independent filmmaking production. He's working as a UX UI designer for spatial media. That's not really journalism. And so there are some students that go into like journalism adjacent, Accenture, R&D technology. And then, Brett, he's actually at USA Today now. I have to update this. I haven't updated it in a while. And he's an investigative reporter. So, this gives you kind of some people do go to work for tech companies, perhaps. Meta is a product growth manager. Chia is at Apple. And Alicia Vargas is working for a radio station. So, it's all over the map. Yeah. And it's, you get out of the program what you put into it. It's like what your individual aspirations are. If you really have a specific career goal in mind, those are definitely achievable. The one thing, bless you, the one thing about journalism is it's really based a lot on the portfolio. So the degree itself will open lots of doors, but it doesn't guarantee a job as it would in a lot of other professions. So in a lot of professions, all you get is that piece of paper, boom, you got a job, you're guaranteed, that's it. You got the credential, that's really it. In journalism, the Berkeley master's degree is gonna really get you seen at a lot of places, but you have to have that portfolio of work. You have to have that demonstrated work. Like, I've worked on these stories. Here's my portfolio of that to demonstrate my competency, that I know how to do these things, that I know how to report a story. That's going to be the thing that seals the deal, and that requires taking advantage of the opportunities throughout the 2 years here at the journalism school. There are a few times where students will just coast through the 2 years, do what they need to do, check the boxes, graduate, and they kind of struggle a little bit, because they just really didn't leverage and take advantage of the opportunities. And there's people that are enterprising. They raise their hand at every opportunity. I want to do that. I want to go there. We have a group right now that's going to Antarctica. It seems a little excessive, but I've been dealing with this recently. And then there's another group that's going to Pakistan. We have a class, a Latin America class. We're still trying to figure out where we're going to go. Probably Colombia. The whole class is going to go to Colombia. So we have a lot of different opportunities. But you have to raise your hand and say, I want to do that. I want to be in that class. I want to take that. So really taking advantage of those opportunities. That's what this place really offers, is opportunities to be a part. We don't really force it on you, right? We're not going to twist your arm and say, do this, do this, do this. You'll take the classes, you'll take the minimum requirements, but really you get out of the program what you put into it. Was there anything on Zoom?
Yes. Sorry, I'm answering questions in the chat as well.
Oh, thank you, Nellie. Nellie's answering questions in the chat.
So firstly, Yvonne is asking where we can find the video of the HIV, the student speaking on HIV. I assume it's in the same.
So if you go to multimedia.report, that's the website is multimedia.report.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can do .com, .org, and they actually opened it up now. So there's a .report, which is kind of cool. So we bought that. So multimedia.report. And if you scroll down, it's called The Chinese Closet, and it's a project. It's a little older now. Let's see. But I always loved it because it's a good demonstration. It's called The Chinese Closet. And you go into there and you kind of scroll through some of this data stuff. It has some little data graphics and interactive talking about, and then here's the video right here. And so, and this is it's the underage, because there was so many young people that were basically contracting, becoming HIV positive, and just being blindsided. And this is little text conversation, about, some of the ways that people are sort of discovering their sexuality, and just like, and then this is it. And again, the big thread through this is how it's taboo. No one wants to talk about it. It's not something that the government wants to acknowledge. People you just don't talk about that. And that's why it's sort of becoming pervasive in society, because it's the thing that nobody wants to face. And so this is one where a guy, is married and, he has an affair and ends up with HIV and doesn't want to tell his wife about it. He just feels like you can't. And then this is a story about an activist who's trying to say, hey, that we should be more open and acknowledge this is reality. Gay people exist in society, and we should talk about it. And then this is a interesting little video where they do we call it a vox pop, a person on the street, where they talk to people in the community, and you get the very varied reactions, mostly. Yeah. People are like, yeah, that's fine, I don't care. But they're trying to capture, the sentiment, the public sentiment of, why is this growing? And the same thing happened here in the Bay Area, specifically in San Francisco in the 80s. No one wanted to talk about it. It ended up just exploding and killing a lot of people. Fortunately, now HIV is very treatable, but still, it's a really difficult disease to work.
I have another question.
Yes,
only just because of time. Thank you so much for sharing that. The videos are really impressive. So Rosa is asking about OSINT and is asking if that's part of the multimedia track and how do they complement the work within the track. So maybe you can speak more to.
Yeah, it is not a part of the track in a formal way. It's part of our investigative program. So we have the 5 tracks, and we also have 5 topic areas that we are really specialists in. We do a lot of health and science reporting, climate change, incarceration, data and investigative reporting. And in our investigative reporting program, David Barstow, which I think some people are going to learn from later, runs the OSINT class. And OSINT, but it's all very interrelated. We do a lot of OSINT stuff as well, but he runs the formal class that teaches this. And if you ever wanted to see our class list, if you go to our journalism school website, you can go to programs, Master of Journalism, because we have a few different programs for undergrads and others, and you can see our course schedule, and you can actually see which courses we offer. And then there's the OSINT, Open Source Investigations, and you can click on it, and you can read the class description about what it's about. And this is the same site our students use to sign up for classes. And you can read the profiles. You know, David Barstow, he's the only person to ever win 4 Pulitzer Prizes, and he runs that class, and he's runs our investigative reporting program. Also runs our Logan Symposium, a big symposium that brings investigative journalists from all over the world here into Berkeley. It's an amazing, and we always have a mentorship day during this Logan Symposium where students sign up and they get to meet people and they sit and you sign up for it and you get to interact. And so that way we want to make sure that we get maximum value to our students. So incredible opportunity to be a part. Investigative journalism is, by far, it's like one of the most noble sides of the profession. It's very hard. It's very tedious. It requires someone to really like looking at lots of documents and, not getting too bored, but if that's your thing, it is really tremendous. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
No. Yeah. Any there? We're good on the chat. Yeah. Do you all have any? One last question. Okay, and then we'll try to.
Yeah. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you so much for this. This has been really awesome. So I'm curious, with these final projects, do students get the opportunity to work with professors or advisors? Is that something that happens? Like, how much guidance do they receive?
A ton. And that's something we're actually struggling with, is almost too much. All of our classes are very small. 12 students to 8 to 12 students is about the average of our class size. So we get to know all of our students on a really individual basis. My office is right next to the workspace, and I see the students every single day, and they just kind of come into my office to chat when I'm trying to get work done. But I always welcome them and to talk, and so it's a very intimate, very small program in terms of the student to faculty ratio, which is a little bit of an issue for us because we might be getting our classes a little bit larger. But that is one of the best characteristics of our program, is just sort of that working under the tutelage of so many amazing professors, and also just because you have so much mentorship, there's a little bit of conflict sometimes about who's the chief editor, and not getting conflicting advice from too many different people. But definitely cultivating strong relationships with all of the professors is a very important characteristic of our program.
Thank you.
And on Zoom, if you have any questions, I can't see you because you're on a computer off on the side, but please put them in the chat, or if I don't know if they can do it on audio as well. But
yeah, I think we can maybe end here. It's 2:50 now, and the chats, we've answered all their questions too. So you've done a great job of.
So I just want to say one last thing, is that the tracks, you will put which track you want to join on the application. The tracks are internal. They're not part of the degree. You don't graduate with it's the same degree across the board. And so it doesn't give you a specialization, as it would in some other schools where you graduate with a Master of Journalism and a specialization in whatever. So it's the same degree regardless of track. And so sometimes you will find a little bit of a vagueness, or a little bit of, it's a little amorphous about how the tracks intertwine. And sometimes you'll hear a student, if you talk to any current students, say, oh, I'm in the middle of audio and narrative or something. I'm doing 2 tracks. But tracks are really sequences of classes. And so every track has a sequence of classes to say, all right, we want to get you to be the best audio producer that you can be. You got to take intro to audio, you got to take intermediate audio, you got to take advanced audio. You got to take those 3 classes, because we can't get you to that high level of competency without, showing you the ropes, getting you cutting your teeth on the basics. And we don't have to reteach all of the basics in the advanced. So you have to take this sequence, and so you can get really good at your craft. Same thing in the multimedia. You take intro multimedia, you take interactive narratives, you take multimedia master's project workshop. And then you have a whole bunch of elective classes. Anyone can take a data class, anyone can take a photography class, anyone can take the coding class. The coding classes are not part of the sequence. It's just an elective class that anyone can take. Even though it is kind of under the umbrella of multimedia, it's open. So the class sequences are really, that's what the tracks are in reality, is they're basically a sequence of 2 or 3 classes. The most rigid track is the documentary program, because they have the most requirements. To get to that point where you're making a documentary film, you have to take a lot of classes and learn a lot of different areas of filmmaking. And so that's the most restrictive, and the one that allows you to take the fewest electives outside of the track. And then photojournalism is 2 classes. Narrative writing is usually 2 or 3 classes. Multimedia were 3 classes, and so you take a full load of classes, but your track is just going to be those 2 or 3, sequenced classes, and then you take the degree required classes that the whole school takes, which is ethics, law, and intro to reporting and research methods, and so the four requirements.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for your time. Thank you all for